everybody. Welcome back to Dan and Kat Talk. This is episode 3, and we're very happy that you're here. My name is Dan Amrich. I'm one of the two hosts, and as you can imagine from the title, the other host is Kat. That would be Katrin Auch, my lovely wife. Hi, Kat.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm excited to talk to our guest this week because I know very little about giant monster movies.
Yes, we're talking about giant monster movies this week because here in the U.S., if you're listening in these United States, you know that Godzilla, Hollywood's latest recreation of probably the most famous, one of the most famous, we'll get into this, giant monster movies of all time, is coming out this month. And yes. This is not a genre with which Kat and I are familiar, let's just say. I mean, like I've seen a couple here and there, like of giant monster movies, but I don't think I've seen any Godzilla movies. Although you told me once that I had seen the one that came out in 1998 with Matthew Broderick. But
you did.
I have no memory of that.
I think it's wishful thinking rather than reality, Dan.
Okay, but in any case, our friend Lou Studdert is somebody that I met when I was working at Activision, and Lou quickly revealed himself to not just be a fan of giant monster movies, but he really knows his stuff. He's a film buff in general, but when I got him talking one day about giant monster movies and Godzilla and King Kong and things like that, he really, I was impressed with just how much he knew. And so in the spirit of, hey man, there's a geek for everything out there, we figured maybe we could learn a thing or two about monster movies. And if you're looking forward to Godzilla, or if you're wondering why this remake of Godzilla is such a big deal, or where it all comes from, well, that's why we have Lou on the show. So here we go. Lou, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Kat, for having me.
Well, you're our monster guy. You're the guy that we know that knows monster movies, and to be completely honest, Kat and I have very little experience with monster movies. But in getting to know you, it became clear that you are not just a fan, you are more of a scholar of the genre.
I'm just a general film nerd. I just happen to have a nice peek at monster movies.
Well, that's fine. You know more than we do, and that's why you're here.
Fair enough.
Let's start with the personal then. When did you get into monster movies? What was it that got you into monster movies?
So I really started liking them as a kid. I was a bit of a scaredy cat when I was a kid. I remember distinctly being terrified of a lot of things. But for some reason, on Sunday afternoons, a random channel would just play a block of Godzilla movies, and they would play the lighter and toned, almost wrestling match-esque Godzilla movies, where Godzilla would fight against Ghidorah and Jet Jaguar, and they would just end up almost goofing around in a big
really
dirt
a
field.
name, Jet Jaguar?
Jet Jaguar.
Oh yeah, Jet Jaguar is almost looks like Ultraman. Very, very close in design. Very, very goofy. I mean, there's a great scale of almost a rogues gallery, if you will, of Godzilla villains and other monsters, ranging in from very high quality to very low quality. But I just always remember being a kid. Really, that was the one thing that didn't really scare me, and I thought it was hilarious, and I actually really enjoyed the monster design, and I thought it was really unique, and it just stuck with me. And it's one of those things that kind of fed my love of just general monster design, be it in horror movies, video games, or otherwise.
Right. Well, when I think about monster movies, I always think of Godzilla first, just because it's the most famous. But where did the genre really start? Is it King Kong?
I think so. I mean, I think King Kong in the 30s was a huge, momentous kind of film for the era and for film in general. I mean, it was kind of one of those pieces of the time where these directors and producers kind of banded together to figure out a way to show something that people had never seen before. And that was really what film of that era was about, was actually, it was a spectacle.
Right.
People didn't travel as much as they do now. I mean, they didn't get out to see things, and so what they wanted to do was always present something that no one had ever seen before. The eighth wonder of the world is King Kong, as they would tell it.
That's right.
Yeah, and so what they did was they actually got, they met up with a guy named Willis O'Brien, who had figured out a way to do kind of stop motion animation and use armatures and build King Kong, and they made a hell of a movie out of it, which wowed a lot of people, myself included, and it is one of the big spectacles, and it's probably the first real kind of giant monster movie.
Right. Is Godzilla the next big milestone in that sort of evolution of the genre?
Yeah, I would say so. I'm sure there's stuff along the way, and there's probably things I'm forgetting, but the thing with monster movies and horror movies and a lot of times other movies in general, they follow this path of what's going on in our society, and it's reactionary. Most people just think, oh, okay, zombie movies are popular because of zombies. They're
right.
Cool now. But there is, a very, very distinct pattern that kind of occurs when you look back on it. And really after King Kong and kind of that showpiece kind of era, the next big one was Godzilla because it was a direct reaction to the end of World War II and the bombing of Japan.
Right.
Yeah, and so that was actually kind of the next blip on the radar, as it were, and that was a big kind of set piece. And that was 1954, when it felt like the Japanese society and the Japanese kind of film kind of society felt the need to continue making movies, continue making unique pictures, but also felt comfortable enough to begin to kind of do the national kind of response to what had happened.
Right.
Yeah. And do you think, because I think a lot of Americans, when they see the films, and I know that there's, a lot of the movies have social messages that are probably lost on, I'm going to say 80% of the audience that watches them. But do you think that, it was a little bit more sensitive because of the timing and the whole proximity to that really tragic event that, scarred Japan for, probably till this day. It's not just, physically inland, but, in the general, when you have bombs falling from the sky, I know that even in England, when, they were getting bombed, even though it was nothing compared to Hiroshima, but it was that constant bombing that a lot of people were really just stressed and long-term damaged from that reality.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's interesting about the first Godzilla movie is it kind of has two versions, and it exists kind of in two planes of purpose. The first purpose is really the Japanese release of it, which is the actual movie, titled Gojira, and it came out in '54. And the nuclear stuff isn't subtext; it is very, very much, on the forefront. I mean, the entire movie is a direct response. Like there was an event in Japan. There was a boat, I think, that was destroyed. Because of, I want to say, U.S. nuclear testing, called the Lucky Dragon, or the Lucky Dragon number 7, I think. And it was a big Japanese kind of news piece, as well as, obviously, the bombing of Japan. And the film starts with a small boat being taken out by the nuclear blast of Godzilla. I mean, it's very, very much in the forefront, and then the actual story of the movie is really...
Wait, when you say the nuclear blast of Godzilla, is that something, is that him...
Oh, yeah, Godzilla has radiation, like nuclear breath.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because...
You're really dealing with newbies with both of us, Lou.
No,
the only Godzilla film I've seen is the Matthew Broderick New York one. So, I've seen bits and pieces of the others, but I haven't really,
There's a nickname for that Godzilla, which is, I think, Gino. It's Gino, Godzilla in name only. And it really does fit, because it has nothing to do
but
with...
she has eggs, and
Yeah.
Where the Knicks play. What is that called?
Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden, yeah.
And there's a fake Siskel and Ebert, like, criticizing the movie as it happens. It's awful. But, yeah, so basically the first version of Godzilla Gojira, very, very nuclear forefront, and the plot of the movie is really these scientists trying to figure out a way to actually destroy Godzilla, who's become this nuclear force of energy, in a way that, you know, they end up actually having to try and create a weapon that's worse, and how conflicting that is. And the fact that they have to come up with this thing called the Oxygen Destroyer to actually defeat Godzilla, but how they don't actually want to even make it, in the fear that someone could actually get it and use it on other humans.
Right.
And so very, very 100% in the forefront is this nuclear tale. But then America, we actually saw it as a giant monster movie because really the film distributors bought it from Japan, got an American actor named Raymond Burr, filmed him as a newscaster on the scene, you know, during Godzilla's rampage, cut out all of the nuclear subtext, all of the tremendously phenomenal Japanese actors, some of whom like are notable for working with Kurosawa or in the Seven Samurai, or some of the best actors in history, cut them out, and then just slapped in this American journalist who, you know, is kind of our key to it, and then dubbed everything. And
so you're saying it's not our fault that we didn't get the subtext because it was removed?
Yes.
We just saw a guy in a rubber outfit.
Pretty much.
Okay.
You guys saw a guy in a rubber outfit kind of rampaging around, and it actually wasn't until 2004 that they even released the actual version of Godzilla that the Japanese saw in 1954 in a correctly subtitled, unedited version.
Now, I have to ask, because probably besides the giant green lizard, one of the most iconic things in when it comes to at least Japanese Godzilla films in America is the out of sync dubbed track, their dubbed dialogue. So, would you say the proper way to watch it is a subtitled version rather than the, I see somebody's mouth moving a lot and then a line comes out in English?
I'm not going to lie. I think both are equally entertaining for different reasons. And I think the bad dub is actually something that I enjoy just as much in kung fu movies.
Yeah.
I love watching like a Shaw Brothers kung fu movie in really, really awful English dub. Just because I think there is, for Americans, a very fun kind of cultural recognition of that. And so for me, I grew up watching the bad dubbed versions, but as a film fan and someone who, wants to enjoy what the director and filmmaker's intent of the film was and actually get the quality of the movie and not just laugh at it, I would watch it in subtitles. So honestly, any DVD or any packaging that has both is pretty awesome to me, because I think you can get great enjoyment out of both.
Is that something that's often offered?
Yeah, on a lot of the good ones. I think I just recently got one of my favorite Godzilla movies, and it's not that great, but it has one of the more unique monsters, is one called Godzilla vs. Biollante. And I just recently got that one. They put it out on Blu-ray. And it had both the original Japanese track as well as, for funsies, a mono track of the poor English dub.
So, and why would you want that in stereo anyway?
Yeah, right? Well, they didn't put forth the effort.
Yes.
How many Godzilla films have there been over the years? It's more than 20 at this point, right? Yeah,
there's a good 20-something. I'd say in the high 20s, so maybe 27, 28. I always mix up the Bond number and the Godzilla number.
Right.
Bond's at, 24, 25. I think Godzilla's at, 28, 27.
So who would win in a fight, really, is what I guess we're getting to.
There's actually a really great stop-motion animation short called Godzilla vs. Bambi.
Yes. That was one of the first, really big alternative animation projects I remember seeing in the 90s.
Yeah, it was like a Spike and Mike Sick and Twisted Animation Festival kind of winner there.
Godzilla wins,
yes,
if I recall. Yeah.
Just a bit, yeah. Godzilla's foot.
But, I mean, I remember seeing a lot of, you mentioned...
Okay, according to the internet, there's 28 Toho movies produced, one TriStar movie, and the legendary Warner Brothers picture coming out. So 30 official Godzilla films.
Okay.
I do not... No. Remove that TriStar. remove Gino, please.
It's still an official Godzilla film.
Well, like you mentioned that there were these nuclear, there's that whole like serious sort of cultural statement about the original film, and then there's the American look. There's giant monsters beating the crap out of each other aspect of it. And I remember a lot of other films from the 50s. I saw The Blob. I remember giant ants being in a film called Them. And yet Godzilla is the one that people keep pointing to now. Godzilla is the thing that keeps coming back, whether you necessarily like how it comes back. I mean, I have vague memories of a Godzilla cartoon from the late 70s, early 80s.
Oh yeah, with Godzuki.
With Godzuki, right? Like it just seems like.
Is that like the Scrappy of Godzilla?
It was the Scrappy-Doo of Godzilla. It is exactly
100%. You are right on the nose.
Wow.
Yep.
What is it about Godzilla that makes it more enduring? Like, we're not seeing a revival of Them with giant ants. We're not seeing a revival of Night of the Lepus, which was one of the first monster movies that I remember seeing with Kat. Kat had seen it first. It's giant rabbits taking over what is it, a farm town, Kat?
It's no, they're taking over the desert. There's in the desert because the child of two scientists who are doing some sort of experiment tell her she can have one of the lab bunnies, and she takes an infected one instead of the uninfected one. I don't know, and the bunny gets free. It runs away from her and breeds, and then we have giant bunnies in the middle of the desert with a farmhouse there. Yeah.
Of course.
But what makes Godzilla more enduring than some of these other takes on the monster genre?
Especially the giant monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to it being kind of the first. That and they were incredibly nimble. With sequelizing it, I don't think people gave it enough credit. But even today, movies will try and get a sequel out, and there's a good span of time there. Godzilla, the first one in 1954, was such a big hit. They pumped, the sequel out. I think the year later.
Yeah, 55.
Obviously the quality took a strong hit, but at the same time, they were able to capitalize on it and get a strong foothold before anyone was even able to kind of bring in another monster.
Now, you've been talking about the first movie, and the first movie is, how do you say it?
Gojira.
It's Gojira.
When did Gojira become Godzilla?
When it was brought to America. The first movie is Gojira in Japanese, or in Japan, and in America it's Godzilla King of the Monsters.
So was it always, like, if you had, like, when this new Godzilla film comes out in Japan, is it going to be Gojira?
I would assume so, because really Godzilla is just kind of an anglicizing of the sounds that I think the words that they're using.
It's
Gojira.
phonetic.
It's just kind of a phonetic change, which is kind of funny considering how the Zilla ending has lasted.
Yeah,
I think even more so than people's remembrance of the movies. The term Zilla, with bridezillas and just anything like that has lasted. But I think
it is now
also,
shortcut for monster.
Yeah, it really is. It has become synonymous with something that is monster.
It's entirely synonymous with monster. But I think that's just because of Toho, which is the Japanese film company that put out the films, getting that strong foothold, but also kind of going with the times, changing, with the currents of film. It started as a really dark, kind of very, very, dire type movie, and then just ended up evolving or devolving, as it were, along the decades to kind of fit what fans had wanted. So when Godzilla starts, he's, complete dark force of nuclear energy and nature, and then ends up becoming the savior of Tokyo in Japan who fights off other monsters, all the same time destroying as many buildings as possible, but still saves, humanity countless occasions. You know, you gotta fight off the Ghidorahs and Gigans of the world.
And do you think
and then aliens as well.
Do you think with this new movie coming out, are they returning to the roots? Is it going back to that sort of dark?
I'll ask this a different way. If you hated the TriStar version and Hollywood is not known for high quality remakes, what gives you any hope at all that this new film is not going to suck?
Twofold. One is actually directly what Kat was referring to, is they seem to get it. They seem to get what made the original one so compelling. And the first piece of kind of trailer or information that anyone got about it was a trailer, I think, that it even leaked, that was actually timed to Robert Oppenheimer's speech about the nuclear bomb, which ended with the "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." And it was this chilling kind of thing where it just showed destruction, and you actually had the voiceover of Oppenheimer just basically talking about the nuclear bomb until it ended and you heard the Godzilla roar, and then it just said Godzilla. And immediately I'm like, okay, at least their marketing team gets it.
Yeah.
And
well,
I was floored. This
new one is a joint Japanese and American film. It's not just an American film company. It's also... It's Legendary and Toho, and they got kind of the Toho buy-off on it. And I think their first kind of success was getting the right director and then the right people to work on the script. And the director actually made on a shoestring budget, an indie giant monster movie, which easily enough was called Monsters. And it's I like direct advertising.
Yeah, I like to know what I'm going to get when I go to the films.
What's actually funny is that you don't. It's the opposite. And what he did was he actually made a movie about these two people, and it exists in a world where basically there was some sort of alien thing that contaminated. I think it was like the southern United States and Mexico, and it's this guy who's basically couriering a rich girl for her father through the contaminated zone. And with a shoestring budget, they get this feeling of basically giant monsters being this force of nature and how humanity reacts. And the actual payoff of the movie is a very quick kind of shot of the monsters who aren't entirely what you were kind of seeming they would be throughout this entire film. And he focused on the drama that comes from a giant monster attack, not necessarily just the fright and the scares of a giant monster attack.
Right.
And that was instantly what kind of sold me on this guy. It's Gareth Edwards, I believe. Is really that he gets that what could potentially make a Godzilla movie so interesting for people now, and what could make a monster movie so interesting is the drama out of it. I mean, it's one of those things where obviously giant monsters don't exist. So creating a fiction where how would humanity react to that? How would someone kind of navigate a zone with potential giant monsters? What are the ramifications on society of that? And the fact that he even tried on a shoestring budget is phenomenal. And hopefully, given the reins of Godzilla, which obviously, influenced the film Monsters, hopefully he'll knock it out of the park.
Oh, sorry. The other... What?
I was going to suggest that the last film that I remember seeing that was a giant monster film that was also kind of not a giant monster film was Cloverfield.
That's funny. That's exactly what I was going to bring up.
Oh, okay.
Sweet.
Well, I was thinking it's exactly the opposite of
Cloverfield, which was all about the...
Well, no, Monsters didn't show anything, and Cloverfield tried not to show anything, but did have that same focus on this is how people would react in this situation, but it still had to have a payoff at the end of here is the giant monster and here is the giant monster destroying things. and stuff like that. But ultimately, like I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but the final shots of Cloverfield are not of the monster and the destruction. It's much more about the human story that they were trying to tell. It's J.J. Abrams, so it's big and it's spectacle and it's like, Spielberg-y
There
dark.
are lens flare.
And a lot of lens flare.
See, I don't mind the lens flare. Everybody gets just all caught up in the lens flare.
I just think it's
doesn't
funny.
bother
It's just
me.
a signature. It's like doves, in a woo film. But
As like in a Prince film.
Yeah,
Yes.
what did you think? Was Cloverfield a reinvention to be respected, or did it just fall short for you as a fan of the genre? Because it is arguably, as Kat was saying, the biggest example of Hollywood trying to do this outside of the realm of Godzilla and in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, are there shortcomings to Cloverfield? Absolutely. Like, my wife can't watch it because she got so ill she had to leave the theater.
Oh,
Too much shaking.
She probably didn't like Blair Witch either, huh?
No, can't do any of those. But for me, I really enjoyed it. I mean, if you think, compared to the TriStar Godzilla, how far they got, in progress, they actually made a great effort. And I thought, Cloverfield, it's got a couple gimmicks too many. Mm-hmm. For some reason, they decided to take as you said, the Blair Witch, or even before that, historically, the Cannibal Holocaust kind of framing device.
There we go.
Which
wondering when we would get to Cannibal Holocaust.
Right?
Yeah.
The framing device of, something bad happened. We found these tapes.
I'm like, why are you going to Cannibal Holocaust? Why aren't you just going to War of the Worlds?
No, because Cannibal Holocaust was the first film to do that. We have found footage, and now we will show you the footage as these events unfolded. It is somebody's first-person found footage film, which was very much the same tactic that Blair Witch took. Our friend Mike is a big film scholar, and he was like, they're ripping off Cannibal Holocaust. And whenever Blair Witch got any kind of press, he was in there on like the Cannibal Holocaust Defamation League. He was there to make sure that they did not get forgotten for,
No one needs to start a league to defame Cannibal Holocaust. It does that itself on its own.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Yeah, but I mean, it has, one too many gimmicks. But all told, it actually does something really cool, which is puts a ground level focus on a giant monster attack. Where that movie is, even though it's in first person, it's more commendable just for its scale and its perspective of just being human height and not trying to get a wide shot of a monster rampaging through a city. It really does make everything feel larger. It makes it feel more immediate, and it makes it feel very, very recognizable to people. And one of the things that I thought was really cool is I've always had this idea in my head for either like a play or like just my ideal Godzilla movie. And my ideal Godzilla movie doesn't feature Godzilla at all. It starts 5 minutes after Godzilla has destroyed Tokyo and left. And he's done it for the 17th time, and it's basically the entire government going, why the hell do we keep rebuilding?
I would watch that film.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like it's kind of that there is an absurdity to all of this, but when you actually kind of step back from just the fright and the fear, it sets up some interesting conversations. That
I know this is a completely different genre, but I liked that what they did in the Marvel Universe movie/TV shows that they're doing about the cleanup of New York after that big battle. I'm like, that's kind of cool, because usually it's like, oh yeah, we destroyed, like all these superheroes are involved in destroying the city,
most
and then
of
it's
Manhattan,
just like,
yes.
and then we're just like, okay, well now we're getting back. They're dead, everything's good. Continue on.
Yeah. Most people are just like, all right, well,
going to work on
back
Monday.
in the ocean. Let's go back to work on Monday.
Yeah.
Oh wait, that building.
The building has holes in it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think taking a more ground level approach is a way that you could easily kind of modernize the genre. It's not it's wide off spectacle. It's very much an immediate human kind of common person take, and it's something that I think Cloverfield really did touch on by having the immediacy and being a group of kind of teenage 20-somethings, whatever, as the events occur. But I'd hope to see the new Godzilla continue to take it further, and I'd love to see more people even take it further than that.
Well, I always thought that like the fact that that Godzilla was destroying a city did change it compared to other, say, horror movies or monster movies, because it was coming to you where you lived. I mean, any disaster film. Okay, I always considered monster movies to be sort of an extension of disaster films. You got the Towering Inferno. Oh, man has made something wonderful and it is flawed. Or Titanic for that matter.
And then, Titanic is real.
Well, Titanic is real, but
Titanic,
come on.
Well, I mean, it started as a movie, Kat.
And then they built the boat, and then it sank. That's the way it works.
Remarkably, the same way it sank in the movie. Would have thought they learned something.
No. They were fans recreating it, and they wanted. Yeah, that was. But then you've also got other kinds of horror movies or disaster movies. 2012, right? It's just a good old-fashioned apocalypse, right? And like the world is crumbling around you, and everywhere you go, it's just over. Or even, a comedy like This Is the End. Like there's no escape from this. But the idea that Godzilla would come into the one major metropolis and destroy it, and I saw that in Cloverfield too, where it's like the monster is coming to your turf. You don't even know what you did or what happened, because part of Cloverfield, my favorite part of Cloverfield actually, was this elaborate ARG that explained the backstory, which is never explained in the film. Slusho. Yeah.
Slusho.
I'm very proud to have a Slusho hoodie, because I was a really big fan of Cloverfield. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I got a Slusho hoodie before they stopped selling them. And you can go online now and read the whole history of the Slusho Corporation and all of that. But to me, that was part of the thing. It was Godzilla meant more because it was happening in your world. Like it was happening the places you go in your city, whether that be Tokyo in the original films or New York in the lauded 1998 TriStar film. Do you want to just clean your claws on that now? Do you want to just get that over? What did this film do wrong? Or rather, the shorter answer is, did it do anything right?
Not particularly, but we'll skip it. I'm done with it.
No, wait.
Less time speaking about it, the better. I want to go on to actually the one thing real quick. Going back, the one thing that always bugged me about Cloverfield, it's named after a city in L.A. and it takes place in New York.
Well, that was all part of him throwing everybody off.
I know. That always bugs me, because whenever I hear Cloverfield, I'm like, I work like a couple streets away from that. Why didn't it exist here?
All right, well, if you don't want to talk about...
LA is far too...
Flat
and not tall. It's not vertical enough for it to work.
It's all wide, yeah.
It's just... and who would miss it, really?
Apparently not you.
It's all strip malls. I don't miss it at all. If you don't want to...
Norm's Unique Guitars is crying to itself.
Oh. If you don't want to talk about the TriStar Matthew Broderick embarrassment...
Yeah.
Jean Reno is in that, excuse me.
He is. I love me some Jean Reno, but he isn't above taking a paycheck.
Then I will let you skip it, other than obviously he doesn't have your endorsement. But I wanted to talk about Gamera, because Gamera was something that I only knew through Mystery Science Theater 3000 mocking it.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
Gamera is really neat. He is full of turtle meat.
Like, Kat and I can still sing the stupid jokes about it. But part of me thinks, it looked pretty silly to me. And I do know you had mentioned that, even Godzilla as a franchise sort of veered into giant guys, guys in rubber suits wrestling with each other. And it was just sort of the spectacle of the fight. Was there any redeeming social or film critic or artistic value to Gamera? Did it deserve getting skewered the way that it did on Misty? Or, was there something, were they really kind of slaughtering a sacred cow or turtle in this case?
I love that. I love Gamera, but I also, to me, honestly, and this is anything in nerd culture, this is anything that I'm a fan of, if you can't laugh at it, grow up. Honestly, I think that stuff's hilarious. Do I love watching Gamera on its own? Absolutely. Would I begrudge anyone watching it with MST3K? Hell no. It's hilarious. It's a turtle with rocket feet. What sacred cow can you possibly have?
Rabbit.
You guys, there is a very, very distinct genus of turtle with rocket feet that, I don't know what they're talking about there. The lore of Gamera, obviously, clearly... No! It's a freaking giant turtle with rocket feet.
Well, I mean, it looks silly on the outside, but if you know, if you're an American and you don't get sort of the deeper subtext of what Godzilla represented, I was wondering, I'm like, well, I wonder if this was also kind of more of a cultural statement. And you're saying that it's not.
I mean, honestly, a lot of them are kind of the Me Too's.
Right.
They just happen to be one of the better Me Too's.
I assume that Gamera was used by Mystery Science Theater 3000 for the simple reason they could get the rights.
Probably.
I mean, that seems to be the guiding light of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll let us do that? Okay.
Yeah, right. I honestly, like, I enjoy Gamera, and then what's funny is Gamera actually had a resurgence. In the 2000s, Japan actually went and updated Gamera and released modern, really nice Gamera films that are, frankly, pretty good. Better than a lot of the output of Godzilla, with the... I'm not even going to refer to it, but, there is no sacred cow to Gamera just because he wasn't Godzilla.
Right.
And so he was he could be made fun of, but he was also above or below being horribly maimed by an American studio wanting to get some money.
Right.
And so I love the hell out of the MST3K Gameras, and I really still enjoy watching it on its own. So,
but Gamera never had Puff Daddy ruining Led Zeppelin on the soundtrack to a Gamera movie.
That's true. Although
that you know of.
That I know of. That's true.
It's true. It was actually they didn't do Puff Daddy covering Godzilla. What they had was Jay-Z working with Rush. It was this really unique. No, I don't know.
All right,
it was called JYYZ.
Well, there,
Yes!
yeah.
I am so proud of myself.
That was a good one. That was. I'm very impressed. Oh God! All right, so I'm sure you have 99 monster movies, but 1998's Godzilla ain't one.
That's
with that in mind, if you're new to the genre, like Kat and I are, I would assume that you kind of you're encouraging people to watch the original Gojira with subtitles as one of the films that if you kind of want to find out what's good and interesting and compelling about giant monster movies as a genre, the original goes like right up there. Are there other films or other things that you would recommend that people check out?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
what would you say?
So, I mean, one of the things that kind of, lifted me up when my love of Godzilla was at its peak as a kid with the kind of wrestling match Godzillas was the Neo Geo game King of the Monsters 2.
Yeah.
And it's got to be the 2 variant because 1 doesn't have nearly enough monsters.
Okay.
No, King of the Monsters 1 is very much, and it's funny because that's the game that I know more than 2. Because for a while I had a Neo Geo cabinet in the house, and I had a copy of King of the Monsters 1, but not the sequel. And it's very limited. It's very basic wrestling brawler kind of game, and I think there's 6 characters in it or something like that. So it's pretty easy to crown a king.
Yeah.
What's better about 2?
It kind of. One of the defining characteristics of Godzilla, at least because it's been around so long, is the number of villains and the number of different monsters. And I think King of the Monsters 2 actually starts kind of dipping its toe in that huge amount of variety. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember there's like this weird scorpion-looking monster. There's someone who looks kind of like Ultraman or Jet Jaguar. There's almost a mecha King Kong.
Yes.
And that was kind of a big one for me. And even before that, though, Rampage. Rampage also was tremendous fun. And I always called out Lizzie because it's basically Godzilla.
Yeah.
It was always funny because there's 3 characters in Rampage, and 2 of them are clearly Godzilla and King Kong.
Yeah, George.
But then one of them's then Ralph is a werewolf.
Ralph is a werewolf. Just an enormous werewolf for no other reason than that looks different than a lizard and a monkey is what I that's what I think. By the way, the Jet Jaguar Astroman or Ultraman looking guy in King of the Monsters, I just remembered his name because it's hilarious. It's Astro Guy. It's not even Astroman. It's not Astrolat. It's Astro Guy. Because I guess Astro Dude was taken. I don't know.
Astro Bro.
Astro Bro.
Let's get on that. He throws his popped collars at you.
Ast Bro.
Hey, bro. Want to knock over a building with me, bro? So in addition to the video game side of things, if you're going movie-wise, there's really a number of kind of paths you can dive into, which is the more serious path or the silly path. More serious-wise, you're going to absolutely start with Gojira. Maybe even go back to King Kong. I think King Kong is a phenomenal movie and it exists, head and shoulders with Gojira. And then recently there's a really great Korean film called The Host that does a tremendous take on the giant monster genre. And I actually don't make it lose any points for using CG as opposed to a guy in a suit or stop motion, but that's also a really good one to go to.
Do you have a preference of the three CG
stop
guy
motion
in suit
or guy in a suit?
Yeah. Or puppet as it is?
Yeah, well, CG's kind of the bottom of the barrel for me. Obviously, it's no escaping it now.
Yeah.
I do really think there's a place for both the suitmation, man in suit, and the stop motion. The Japanese are really the only ones who ever did suitmation, or at least ever got it right. And
they continued it with the Power Rangers, which is sort of like the.
Oh yeah.
It's like I was a little old for the Power Rangers. Like it came up after me. I'm like, really? That's what it's like. And all I could think of it's like Godzilla, except with
teenagers and weakly.
Teenagers and yeah. And it took me a long time to figure out that even though they made the Yellow Ranger female in America, that all of the stuff of the actual fighting, which was shot in Japan, the Yellow Ranger is a guy.
I thought the Pink Ranger was the stereotypical girl one.
No, there's two in the original Power Rangers. There was an Asian girl and a blonde, and I think like a blonde girl. And the Asian girl was in the yellow costume, and then they're like, oh.
Because that's not racist.
Oh, no, not at all. Or sexist in the fact that...
Not racist at all, no. So. Yeah, so the Power Rangers were something that I kind of avoided for the most part. But kind of the other stuff that there is in kind of that sillier vein of things is really just the different eras of Godzilla. I mean, there's kind of these different chunks of time where it goes from being really serious to wrestling match to having crazy monsters to, very, very detailed destruction mixed with almost anime type storytelling. But one of my personal favorites is Godzilla versus Biollante, because for lack of a better term, it's Godzilla versus a giant rose.
What?
A what?
Wait a minute. I've seen some stills from this, and okay.
So Godzilla versus
rose?
Yes, like
rose.
As in a flower.
Yep, as in a flower. So the story behind Biollante is that it's kind of a mix between a scientist who's grabbed Godzilla's like a scale of Godzilla and used Godzilla's DNA, mixed it with his dead wife's, and a flower. And it then ends up creating
this is sounding like a weird mix between Dr. Freeze and Poison Ivy as the enemy.
Pretty close.
And a little Seth Brundle in there, too.
Oh, yeah, get a little Brundlefly going on. Pretty much.
Because he self-pollinates at that point, right? If he's a flying insect, but it's also a rose, then there you go.
Yeah, there you go. But it ends up creating this giant, multi, can't even be tentacles at that point. They're roots. And branches and such, monster that ends up looking like a beautiful rose, and it gets better, you guys, because the scientist's daughter is psychically linked to it because it's the genes of her dead mom, and so they communicate, and then Godzilla shows up, messes up Biollante, hits it with the radioactive Godzilla breath, destroys Biollante, which then becomes pollen in the air, and then later in the film comes back as basically Audrey 2 from
awesome
from Little Shop of Horrors, and it ends up being this giant, alligator mouthed plant that Godzilla fights with that has acid type chlorophyll and almost a Godzilla, or not a Godzilla, an alligator type maw to it.
Does it sing "I'm a mean mother effer from outer space"? Because that would be awesome.
It should entirely. I think someone really needs to just add that onto some clips of Biolante.
Is this a film that you have to be enjoying adult beverages to truly enjoy, or is this something that you can watch sober and have silly fun with it?
Oh no, you can have a blast with this one. I think it's absolutely hilarious.
All right,
mostly, but also I appreciate it from the stance of the fact that Biolante is the biggest suit they ever made. Biolante is freaking huge, and once you get past the idea of, yep, that's Godzilla fighting against a giant rose, it's really impressive. I mean, from a craftsmanship standpoint, this thing's massive. It looks cool. It's a really, really impressive piece of work, and that's one of my favorites for the sillier ones. And then if you want to go into the kind of Royal Rumble of Godzilla movies, the older one is Destroy All Monsters, which is basically, I think there's something like 12 different monsters in that.
Oh my goodness.
And so you get Mothra, Gigan, Anguirus, Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, Ghidorah, all these guys just rumbling on Monster Island.
Monster Island. It's conveniently named because we stuck all the monsters there.
Yes, it's very, very conveniently named. And then the one that they had made prior to the new Godzilla coming out, they had ended the Toho Japanese string of Godzilla movies a couple years back with something called Godzilla Final Wars, and it's worth watching just because it is kind of that destroy all monsters, like everyone in the kitchen sink of all the different monsters. It ventures a bit too much in the anime stuff when it goes into the human drama, because there's a lot of cheap Japanese wire foo with the aliens versus the humans, but the actual fighting of the monsters is really cool, and one of the best parts is real Godzilla kills the TriStar Godzilla in the movie.
No way!
It shows up, and Godzilla just blasts it. Like, doesn't even take a second. It's just like the stupid iguana from the TriStar one shows up and gets destroyed.
A fitting end.
Wow.
Yeah, it's worth it just for that. It's totally sure, we'll bring him in. Backhanded compliment.
Right. Oh yes, we are acknowledging and nothing more.
Yeah. And then, outside of that, I'd recommend people watch Cloverfield. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of shows you the unique opportunities that are there behind the genre.
I'm going to recommend to you one of my favorite monster films, The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra.
I've seen The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. And
I sleep now.
They did another one afterwards, like a ghost movie or something.
Has that come out yet? I thought it was going. I heard about it, but I didn't think it actually came out.
They did a sequel.
Did they?
To Lost Skeleton, and I think they've written a third. I don't know if it's completed. But yeah, they're doing, like, that crew, that cast of actors and the people that are doing it. They've done several different things. I think they did a murder in a mansion movie too. To sort of do that kind of stuff. So there's like 4 or 5 films from Larry Blameyer with those people, and at least more than one of them is a Lost Skeleton of Cadavra film. But that is not a giant monster movie, but it is a loving tribute. Well, there is a monster. That's true. There is a monster,
and he is
large, and he's a guy in a suit.
And he's a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I would recommend, and this is just because I actually have it sitting in front of me for this, there is a book called, and once again I will butcher a Japanese name up and down, but it's EJ or EG Tsuburaya, Master of Monsters, and it's the guy who created the Godzilla suit and invented Ultraman.
Wow.
And it's just this book about the history of the genre, the history of it, but from the kind of the suit perspective, and showing, how they actually got better at it and the history behind all of it, and how it ended up just getting to be kind of huge. And there are some really, really great behind the scenes pictures of directors in color, like walking next to a Godzilla monster that's actually their shoulder height.
Right.
And so the scale is absolutely astounding when you start seeing the film tripod being as tall as Godzilla. Yeah, it totally messes with your brain.
I was sad when I saw pictures of Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It was a guy in a suit, and he's on a set, and I'm suddenly like, oh, those are tiny little car. Okay, never mind. Yeah. Like, I was a fool for believing that there could be a 30-foot-high Marshmallow Man.
Yeah.
All right, well, would you like to play a game?
Hint, the answer is yes.
This is a very War Games
Shall
situation
we play a game?
The only way to win is not to play.
No. No, there is a way to win, and the way to win here is playing. Do you want to do it?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go.
You must choose.
So the game is obviously called You Must Choose, and it's very simple. I'm going to read you two things, like a pair of things, like, shoes or sandals. And you just tell me shoes or sandals.
Okay.
And we're going to do that for 30 seconds. We're going to cram as many things in as we possibly can. Kat will time us.
Okay.
And then we'll be good to go. And so these are going to come from a long list, and they're going to basically be random. I'll try to do things that I think you might have some knowledge of, but these are going to come from all over the place.
You ready?
All right.
Are you prepared?
As ready as I'll ever be.
We will go when... Kat, are you ready to time?
I'm ready to time when you finish reading the first question.
When I finish reading the first one, the time starts. Okay.
All right.
Here we go. Hunger Games or Battle Royale?
Battle Royale.
Space Ghost or Blue Falcon?
Space Ghost.
Transformers or Voltron?
Transformers.
Canada or Mexico?
Mexico.
Sound of Music or The Music Man?
Ooh, Sound of Music.
Chekhov or Sulu?
You dropped out. What was it again?
Chekhov or Sulu?
Sulu.
The Raven or The Telltale Heart?
The Telltale Heart.
Marilyn Monroe or Grace Kelly?
Grace Kelly.
Jackson 5 or The Osmonds?
Jackson 5.
Brady Bunch or Partridge Family?
Partridge Family.
Stop.
Turn off the computer when you're done, or leave it on running all the time.
What
Turn
part
off.
of stop did you not hear?
I didn't hear any of them.
Oh, okay.
I didn't hear you say stop at all.
Okay. Well, I said stop.
Okay.
Well, pretend I didn't say turn off.
Okay. Well, there's still one more that you have to do.
Okay.
Dan or Kat?
Oh, good God.
You must choose.
Oh. I'm married, so I know this answer. Cat.
Oh, yay! Damn it! No! That was incorrect. We work together, man.
We don't anymore.
Well played, Lou. Well played. Well, thank you for being on Dan and Cat Talk.
Yeah,
Thank you for giving us the quick and dirty history of monster movies, because as you can tell, Kat and I both pretty ignorant when it comes to it. There's Gamera, there's Cloverfield, and then there's that masterpiece from 1998 starring Matthew Broderick. So, but thank you very much. Will you come on again and talk about other passions later?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
And where can we find you?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
do you want people to find you? Do you want people to follow you on Twitter? Do you want people to send you email?
This is very fitting end because, on Twitter I'm at Gojira84. It's not very difficult. It's Gojira 84.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Are you looking forward to the next film? Do you have your tickets already, or?
It's sad to say I have not gotten my tickets yet because I'm still trying to wrangle friends to figure it out. But yes, I'm very much looking forward to the new one, and fingers crossed it lives up to my lofty expectations.
On behalf of all fans of anything, anywhere, I hope you like it.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
I really do.
I'm very curious to see how the meth fits in.
Yeah.
How the what?
How the meth fits in, because Bryan Cranston is in it, so there has to be meth. Yeah.
Okay, I thought you had said math, and I'm like, well, I mean, it's...
Well, I don't know. He's like, what, 100 feet high, 120 feet high?
Actually,
triangulate
no,
the angles.
They made him bigger than he's ever been. I think he's something like 300 feet in the new one. He's massive.
Okay. Well, I hope you dig it.
Fingers crossed.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks again.
They really aren't.
Thanks very much, Mr. Knuckles.
Yes, this is emergency tech support. What is the nature of your emergency? I'm sorry, can you say that again? No way, you've got to be kidding. Yes, of course, I do understand the issue. I will send our best man right away, Chance Fortran, tech therapist.
Yes, it's Chance Fortran, tech therapist. As the future's premier interstellar IT specialist, Chance travels the galaxy repairing the rifts between users and the technology on which they depend. Today, we find Chance relaxing between calls, checking out the entertainment news on the wave. Will you look at this? They're making yet another Godzilla movie. I mean, I lost track of how many times that lizard's destroyed cities or planets or galaxies or whatever he's smashing this week. I mean, it's getting kind of silly.
Incoming call from control. Marked urgent.
Well, put her through right away. Control, Chance here. I was beginning to think that you had forgotten all about me.
No time for small talk, Chance. We have a bona fide emergency on our hands.
I'm your man. What's the situation?
Godzilla is destroying New North Hollywood.
I think you're mistaking your entertainment feed for your news feed.
This is no mistake. Toho Studios is working on a new film.
Yeah, I was just reading about that in a remarkable coincidence.
Instead of a guy in a rubber suit, they decided to upgrade to a sentient robotic actor to play Godzilla. They included the new AI chip that includes emotion as well as free thought. Spent billions on the thing.
Really? Well, I'm suddenly a lot more interested in seeing this movie.
If there even is a movie, the monster has started rampaging.
Well, isn't that the idea?
The thing is supposed to destroy the set, not the whole studio. He has the production team trapped in a trailer, shaking it like it was a maraca.
Well, roger that, Control. I'm on my way. Reconcile, set course for New North Hollywood. Less than 12 parsecs later... Reconcile, can you hear me?
Your communicator is functional.
I'm having trouble getting a reading. Can you give me a boost?
Enhancing scanner array now.
Ah, that worked. Thanks. Let's see. It looks like Godzilla's voice chip has been locked on scream only. If I switch to English, I might be able to figure out the problem here.
Seriously, you guys! You didn't think I wouldn't notice when you make plans for drinks after work? Hey! Ever think of inviting me? No! Why not? Why would you? I'm just the star of the movie. The glue holding it all together?
Excuse me, Mr. Zilla. I hate to interrupt, but may I have a word?
What do you want? Oh, jeez. I'm so sorry. How terribly rude of me. I'm afraid you caught me in a bit of a mood. What can I say? Temperamental artist.
No, that's okay, but you seem to be having quite a disagreement here, and the studio asked me to try and smooth things over.
Really? Did they? Oh, man. I gotta say, I'm quite surprised. They really haven't been listening to any of my requests.
Well, actually, I think there's been some sort of a communications error.
Tell me about it. Feels like we aren't even speaking the same language.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, I sense there's a lot of frustration here. How can I help you remove some of that?
Honestly, I just want to be treated like a human being. My trailer's basically a crate. Craft services won't serve me. And the director ignores my request to discuss motivation. I mean, I know I'm playing a monster. But does a monster not sleep? Does a monster not eat? Does a monster not need to know what he's feeling when smashing through a transit system?
Shakespeare, right?
I love the Bard! I'm actually playing Shylock in a summer stock production after this wraps.
Well, that's great. Look, let me talk to management about this, because I think we can all work this out so that everybody feels respected and valued. But no more destroying the studio in the meantime, okay?
Yeah, sorry. My blood sugar's kind of low.
Join us next time for another exciting episode of Chance Fortran, Tech Therapist. Hey, you mentioned craft services. Can I get you something to eat?
Oh, man, I would totally kill for a grilled cheese sandwich. It's a figure of speech!
What do you make of that, Al? Godzilla!
Come on!
Godzilla went to Bob Big Boy to grab a bite to eat. The mighty lizard was hungry. He wasn't wearing shoes, and he did not own a shirt. That's where the trouble began. The waiter said, "Can't you read? It says it right there on the door. No shoes, no shirt, no service." This made Godzilla sad, and he grew very mad. This policy hurt his feelings. All he wanted was a grilled cheese sandwich. All he needed was a grilled cheese sandwich. All he wanted was a grilled cheese sandwich and a side of fries. So he broke buildings and he crushed cars, all because no one would serve him. He ripped down power lines, demolished bridges. They should have served him. He stepped on people and bitty dogs. I bet they wish they had served him. You know why? All he wanted was a grilled cheese sandwich. All he needed was a grilled cheese sandwich. All he wanted was a grilled cheese sandwich and a chocolate mold. But before you pass judgment on the Monster King, think about these things. How will you feel to be good for a day and weigh over 6 million pounds? How would you like to have it breaking retail, knock over stuff whenever you were around? All he wanted was a grilled cheese sandwich. All he needed was a grilled cheese sandwich. All he wanted was a grilled cheese sandwich and a side of fries. One more time. All he wanted was a grilled cheese sandwich. All he needed was a grilled cheese sandwich. All he wanted was a grilled cheese sandwich and a chocolate mold. It's such a shame to think that all he wanted was a grilled cheese sandwich. Too bad nobody served him. So if Godzilla ever wants a grilled cheese sandwich, please bend the rules this once, just this once. And serve him.
He's leaving. But he will be back.
That is it.
This has been episode 3 of Cat and Dan Talk. If you have any questions or comments, you can find us on Twitter at Cat and Dan Talk or email us at catanddantalk.com. Chance Fortran, Tech Therapist, is written and directed by Katrin Auch and produced by Dan Amrich. Grilled Cheese Sandwich was written and performed by Deacon Gressler. This has been a Play Record Pause production.